According to the Washington Post, 963 people experienced fatal force by the police last year. This year, 2017, 345 people have already been shot and killed by the police. These statistics were recorded between social media, news reports, and public records. I'm here today to tell you how not to become one of those statistics as well. I want to talk about the 3 different levels of interaction with the police, as well as some signal phrases that can indicate your rights and responsibilities, and finally some resources that you can go to hold the police accountable for their actions. Some of the language that I will be using can feel a little bit unnatural, but it is vital legal jargon that can help protect you from ending up in jail, a hospital, or worse, the morgue. The first level of interaction is conversation. It is the least intrusive level, and it occurs when the officer has objective, credible reason to approach you. So, for example, perhaps there was a commotion a couple blocks away from the direction you were walking from, and now the officer wants to question you about what you may have witnessed. Your conversation should go a little something like this. The officer is going to ask you about your identity or where you were coming from, and you can say, "Officer, am I being detained?" To which, in an ideal situation, the officer will say no. Then you can ask, "Am I free to go?" After that, they should say yes. You want to end that conversation by saying, "Thank you, officer, I'm going to leave now." This last phrase is critical because you want to communicate to the officer your intent to leave. You don't want them to think that you're just running away. So, there's also another myth I want to burst. While you are not legally obligated to show identification to the officer or to speak to the officer, you can help de-escalate any potential situations, and it will help you end the conversation sooner. Now let's assume that the officer says, "No, you're not free to go." Consider yourself in the second level. You're now in detention. There are also some nonverbal cues that the officer can give you. They can either show their weapon, physically obstruct your exit, they can physically hold you down. It is best to stay calm and respectful in this situation. But here are some phrases that you can say. They're going to ask you, "What were you doing over there? Where are you coming from?" And then you can say, "Officer, what is your reasonable suspicion for detaining me?" To which they may reply to something that pinpoints you to the crime or description. "We were radioed that you were wearing a red hoodie and backpack just like the suspect." Now you can say, "I'm going to remain silent." After that, the officer is likely going to search you and your belongings. At this point, you can say, "I do not consent to this search." Say so in a loud, clear, respectful manner, but also calm and assertive. Now, before we move forward to the next level of interaction, I want to highlight a common malpractice by the police. You may have heard of it: stop and frisk. Stop and frisk was designed to get illegal weapons off of the streets. The stop requires reasonable suspicion that you have committed a crime, and the frisk requires reasonable suspicion that you are armed. The officer is to simply pat you down to see if you have any weapons on you. It does not entail the search of your personal belongings. Thus, another reason to say, "I do not consent to this search." So now let's assume that they search you and they find some type of weapon. Maybe it's a box cutter that you use at work. They are likely going to arrest you. If they arrest you, you must practice your right to remain silent. You should already be practicing this right back in the detention stage, but it is especially important to recite it during arrest and at the precinct. You should also be saying, "I want to speak to an attorney." We've all seen officers make arrests on TV, Law and Order, Criminal Minds, and they often recite their Miranda rights. But in reality, in real life, on the streets, we don't see them say this. We don't hear it come out of their mouths. It does not mean that you no longer have those rights. You still have that right, and you need to use it. 2 things to note about the arrest stage. 1, if you are under 16, you should ask for your parent or guardian to be contacted. Police officers must make a reasonable attempt to contact one or both. 2, do not sign any documents or make any statements without your lawyer present. Now, what do you do after all is said and done? What do you do after the police have violated your rights? I'm going to give you a few resources. The first thing you can do is file a notice of claim. This is essentially suing the police. The Bronx Defenders holds a notice of claim clinic the first Wednesday of every month around 2:30 in the afternoon. I also encourage you to file a complaint with the Civilian Complaint Review Board, also known as CCRB. You may think that you experienced an isolated incident with a police officer, but for all you know, that officer may already have a paper trail. You can also file a complaint with the New York City Human Rights Commission. They specialize in LGBTQ issues. Finally, organize. Become active about your local legislation and participate in community organizing so that you can build action and accountability. Above all, remain safe, calm, and respectful. Recite your rights and educate your community on theirs.